Welcome back to Top 5 Tales. Today, we're diving into a topic that's both eye-opening and humbling: the top 10 poorest countries in the world in 2025. These nations face immense challenges, from conflict and political instability to climate disasters and economic hardship. Using the latest data from the International Monetary Fund and other sources, we'll explore what makes these countries the poorest, the struggles their people face, and what's being done to change their futures. Stick around, hit that subscribe button, and let's get started. Poverty isn't just about money. It's about access to food, clean water, health care, education, and opportunity. To measure poverty, we often look at GDP per capita adjusted for purchasing power parity, or PPP, which accounts for how much people can actually buy with their income in their country. In 2025, the global wealth gap is stark. While the richest nations boast GDP per capita over $100,000, the poorest struggle below $2,000. Sub-Saharan Africa dominates this list, with 9 of the top 10 poorest countries located there, alongside one outlier in the Middle East. Let's break down the top 10, starting with number 10, and uncover the stories behind the numbers. Number 10. The Democratic Republic of the Congo. At number 10, we have the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or DRC, with a GDP per capita of $1,670. The DRC is massive, Sub-Saharan Africa's largest country by land area, home to 110 million people and vast resources like cobalt and copper. Yet 63.9% of its population lives in extreme poverty. Decades of conflict, corrupt governance, and militia control in the east have crippled its economy. Malnutrition and poor health care are rampant, and the country's rapid 3.29% population growth adds pressure. Despite this, the IMF projects slight growth in 2025, driven by mining. Could this be a turning point? Only if stability improves. Number 9. Niger. Niger, a landlocked nation in West Africa, comes in at number 9 with a GDP per capita of $1,540. Covered mostly by the Sahara Desert, Niger's economy relies on subsistence agriculture, vulnerable to desertification and climate shocks. Its population is growing rapidly, but weak infrastructure and limited education keep poverty high. A 2023 coup led to sanctions, cutting off fuel and medicine supplies. Uranium exports offer some hope, but corruption siphons off benefits. Niger's people needs better irrigation and transparent governance to break the poverty cycle. Number 8. Mozambique. Mozambique, a resource-rich coastal nation, ranks 8th with a GDP per capita of $1,400. Despite 7% average growth in recent years, 74% of its people live below the poverty line. Cyclones, floods, and droughts disrupt agriculture, which employs most of the population. Insurgent attacks in the gas-rich north since 2017 have scared off investors. The IMF projects 5% growth in 2025, but without better infrastructure and climate resilience, Mozambique's potential remains locked away. Number 7. Somalia. At number 7, Somalia's GDP per capita is $1,350, with 60% of its people below the poverty line. Decades of conflict, weak governance, and severe droughts have devastated this Horn of Africa nation. Food insecurity is critical, with mothers walking miles for water and children facing malnutrition. The World Bank sees a slight decline in poverty by 2027 thanks to humanitarian efforts and small-scale business training, like those for shop owners in Mogadishu. But escalating insecurity in 2025 threatens progress. Number 6. Madagascar. Madagascar, the island nation famous for its biodiversity, ranks 6th with a GDP per capita of $1,300. Over 75% of its 35 million people rely on subsistence farming, and it's the world's top vanilla exporter. But political instability, like the 2009 coup, and frequent cyclones hinder growth. Food insecurity and child labor are widespread, and only 10% of the population has electricity. Recent mining and textile growth offer hope, but stronger anti-corruption measures are critical.
Number 5. Malawi. Malawi, a landlocked country in southeastern Africa, has a GDP per capita of $1,200, placing it at number 5. Its economy depends heavily on rain-fed agriculture, making it vulnerable to climate change. Limited natural resources and a history of colonial exploitation keep poverty high. The government is pushing for diversification and better education, with community initiatives showing progress. But without climate-resilient farming, Malawi's 70% agrarian population faces ongoing risks. Number 4. Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone, with a GDP per capita of $1,100, ranks 4th. This West African nation has faced war, Ebola, and economic challenges. Rich in diamonds, it struggles with corruption and unequal wealth distribution. Most citizens rely on subsistence farming, and infrastructure remains weak. Recent efforts to improve healthcare and education are promising, but long-term recovery requires tackling corruption and building stronger systems. Number 3. Central African Republic, or CAR, is the third poorest, with a GDP per capita of $1,050. Despite gold, diamonds, and forests, 70% of its people live in poverty. Ongoing conflict and militia control disrupt trade and deter investment. The 2016 election of President Touadera was a step toward stability, but armed checkpoints and weak infrastructure persist. Growth in forestry and agriculture offers hope, but peace is essential for progress. Number 2. Burundi. A small landlocked nation in East Africa is the second poorest, with a GDP per capita of $950. Over 80% of its 13 million people rely on subsistence farming, vulnerable to climate shocks. Political unrest since the 2005 Civil War and 40% inflation in 2025 choke growth. Only 10% have electricity, but new hydropower projects could help. Coffee and tea exports offer potential, but stability and investment are critical. Number 1. South Sudan. The world's poorest country in 2025 is South Sudan, with a GDP per capita of just $716. Independent since 2011, this young nation of 15 million is plagued by civil war, corruption, and reliance on oil, which accounts for 98% of revenue. Over 80% live below the poverty line, and basic infrastructure like roads and electricity is scarce. Droughts and floods worsen food insecurity. A fragile peace deal and upcoming elections in 2025 offer hope, but the road ahead is tough. Why are these countries so poor? Why do these countries top the list? Common threads include political instability, conflict, and weak governance, often rooted in colonial legacies. Heavy reliance on agriculture makes them vulnerable to climate change. Droughts and floods and cyclones devastate crops. Corruption and unequal resource distribution mean wealth doesn't reach the people. Rapid population growth strains limited resources, and poor infrastructure limits trade and investment. The legacy of the COVID-19 pandemic and global events like the 2022 Ukraine grain crisis have also driven up food prices, hitting these nations hardest. What's being done? There's hope on the horizon. International organizations like the World Bank and Concern Worldwide are providing aid, from food distributions to business training. Governments are pushing for economic diversification, like Malawi's small-scale industries or Burundi's hydropower projects. Anti-corruption measures and climate-resilient farming are gaining traction. You can help too. Consider donating to organizations like the Sudanese American Physicians Association or supporting sustainable development initiatives. Every bit counts. That's the top 10 poorest countries in 2025. These nations face immense challenges, but their people show incredible resilience. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments, and if you found this video insightful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell for more deep dives into global issues. Share this video to spread awareness, and check out our other videos on global economics. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.